Okay, so it's time to break down Season 3, Episode 8 of The Bad Batch, so let's get straight into it. We begin the episode on Pabu, where we see Omega worrying about Rex and Echo following the events of the previous episode. And it makes sense that this would weigh heavily on Omega, as in her mind, most of her clone brothers died because the Empire is hunting her, and there has to be some level of guilt involved. The team decide that they need to do some investigation as to why Hemlock is so interested in Omega, and we get a message from Phee who briefly mentions Tech while telling them what she found. And I do think that this is something that the show hasn't really explored fully, which is how Tech's death affected Phee, especially considering that the two had a blossoming romance between them prior to his death.
Hey now, got a name, Brown Eyes?
So Phee's somewhat nonchalant reference to Tech does come across as a little bit cold. Anyway, it's a bit of a minor point, and it also might be the case that I'm misinterpreting it. The team figure out that they need to talk to a Class 1 bounty hunter who might know more about what M-count is, and this is actually the first time we hear a ranking system such as this being used. So this classification, assuming that it is the highest, would likely include the likes of Boba Fett, Bossk, and a particular someone hinted at the end of the episode. Omega brings up Fennec Shand as a possibility, and her natural inclination to trust Fennec Shand likely stems from the fact that back in Season 1, she realized that Fennec was working for the Kaminoans, specifically Nala Se. Hunter orders Omega to stay behind and task her with helping Crosshair with his hand issue. Hunter and Wrecker fly to an unnamed space station, and we see what looks to be a droid bouncer kicking out a rowdy patron. What's interesting here is that the two droid bouncers are of the same model as the criminal organization the Vanguard Axis, a group which the team encountered before while rescuing Gungee in the process. They head to a cantina where we find Fennec speaking to a Rodian trying to make a deal with her. They end up dismissing the poor Rodian, and they quickly work out a deal. Omega takes Crosshair to AZ, and we learn that he may never fully recover. And on top of it, it doesn't appear to be a physical issue, but more of a mental one. AZ tries to get Crosshair to talk about it, but he blatantly refuses. And this might be the first time we actually see the impact of torture and its psychological damage. Now, we've had torture in Star Wars before, but this might be the first time we really delve into the psychological after effects, at least on screen. And while the show doesn't explicitly say it, and the real implications of these so-called experiments will likely be missed by younger viewers, if you really think about it, it's actually very dark for something unsaid. The idea that Crosshair was likely subjected to experiments for years says a whole lot about how much he had to go through. Another point to add is that some of the psychological trauma might also stem from Hemlock's attempt to convert Crosshair into one of these CX troopers, something which previously discussed had a very low survival rate. But it also plays to a broader topic which has been hinted at in Rebels, where we see the likes of Wolffe struggling with PTSD from the war.
I contacted the Empire. If they found out that we were helping Jedi, they'd wipe us out. I wanted to protect you guys. Protect our squad. The war is over. We are free men. We can't live under the fear of the Empire for the rest of our lives, Wolffe. That's not freedom!
Hunter and Wrecker are told by Fennec that they are hunting Sylar Saris, the slayer of Ordo Eris. Now, the character Sylar Saris is a new one, but he belongs to a species known as the Yamrii, which are aliens based on the praying mantis and was first introduced all the way back in A New Hope. Ordo Eris refers to a location in the Outer Rim, once known as Polis Massa, essentially an asteroid space station that acted as the stronghold for the Haxion Brood. And the Haxion Brood is a criminal syndicate that was featured heavily in the Jedi Fallen Order games featuring Cal Kestis, so it sounds like Sylar took on too many big jobs for the Haxion Brood, which is why many powerful people want him dead. The three of them land on a swampy planet where they are greeted by pit droids. Hunter and Wrecker manage to find Sylar, and after a brief struggle, the three of them manage to take him out. Back on Pabu, Omega tries to help Crosshair and helps him come to terms with the idea that he might need to solve his psychological issue by other means. They end up meditating, and Omega explains that she picked this up from Gungee and the Wookiees on Kashyyyk, again referencing the events of Season 2. And the meditation is quite reminiscent of the sort of meditation the Jedi do. Crosshair is surprised that Omega has been to Kashyyyk, and he is reminded that he did miss out a lot of time with his brothers while he was still under the Empire, which I'm sure there is a twinge of regret in there somewhere. And Omega guiding Crosshair through this is a representation of a lot of maturity on her part, while Crosshair's willingness reflects a lot of trust that he has built up for her. Fennec tells Hunter and Wrecker that she will have to get them their information, and as we see her depart, she contacts a mysterious figure with an encoded voice, and this very likely points to Asajj Ventress, who we already know is set to appear in the show. She would most certainly fit the profile of someone who could tell the Bad Batch what an M count is, and given that she is currently working as a bounty hunter, it's really no surprise. So definitely expect her to show up in the next episode. Anyways, that's all for this breakdown. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. I'm the Lost Acolyte,
and I have spoken.